Scooch that over a little bit here. All right. Let's get started. How's everybody doing today? I hope you guys are doing fabulous. All right, so we are going to do this painting today. It's another reflection painting, but it's going to be a little bit different here. We're going to combine some of the skills that we've learned in the last few paintings. And so let's get started. As always, we are going to start with our pre-sketch. I seem to have misplaced my pencil, so I'm going to use a pen, but that way you guys will probably be able to see it better anyway. So we're going to put our horizon line on there, just a little bit over halfway through. You want there to be more water than sky in this one. And then we've got a mountain here. We've got a mountain here. And then we will have trees along here. Same thing on the other side. We'll do a little mountain, big mountain. Remember, it doesn't have to be exactly the same because the water will distort it, but you want it to be pretty close. But we don't want to spend too much time worrying about perfect here. So we are going to start with our sky. So I'm going to take my light blue, and I am going to put dark all along the top here. Just like we've done the last few times, we're going to end up spreading that down so that it fades out as it gets lower down. The atmosphere makes it look darker higher up. We've got some science experiment videos coming your way pretty soon here that'll explain why it does that. I'll show you some cool ways to replicate it in your house, which will be fun. All right, so now we're just going to grab that color here, wet it down, and bring it straight down. Make sure you're getting it real wet so that it spreads for you here. And pull that color down. Just like so. And I'm just kind of evening it out a little bit here because I do have some spots that are real dark still up here. And if you wanted it to be even lighter down below, what you can do is add some water and pull some of that up. If you want to fade it out more, just move that color around. You can also take a little piece of paper or a paper towel and blot off some of that color once it's wet. So I'll just demonstrate here with my hands. So if you do that, it'll pull up some of that color. All right, now we are going to do the same thing on the bottom here. Take that color and spread it out. All right, now working backwards to forwards, we're going to do our back mountain, which is this bigger one here. We're going to do that one in a dark blue. So I have two different shades of blue on my palette. I have a dark blue and kind of a turquoise blue. The turquoise is what I did for the sky. The dark blue is what I'm using for this. Now, most of you are probably only going to have one blue, and it's probably going to be that dark blue. So for your sky, you can always lighten it, or just spread it thinner and it'll kind of lighten itself like this one did. We're going to do both of these big mountains here. So we're going to do this side and this side at the same time here. Sometimes that helps you be able to make them match a little easier. So I encourage you to try it both ways here and see what you prefer. I have plenty of color on here, so I'm just grabbing some from other parts of the mountain here and spreading it out. All right. Now we're going to use a little bit of both of these blues on this right here, and I'm just going to dab it on there rather than spreading it out because I want this one to be more rough looking. And I'm just switching back and forth between the two blues. But what you can do is take a little dab of green and add that in on part of your blue, and then just switch back and forth between the blue and the blue-green. Just like so. Add some water in here to spread it out a little bit more. All right. Now we're going to grab some white. And we want to mix our white quite a bit here so that we get a lot of pigment on it. We don't want it to be really pale because we're going to be adding it to the snow caps on the top of the mountain there. And we're going to do some big gobs of white because it'll start to grab that blue, and we want that white to show through pretty well. And we're going to dab from the top going down, following the slope that mountain is making. Just like so. So top, going down the slope in several directions here. There we are. Now we are going to take yellow ochre, which is that yellow-brown color that we've talked about before. Now that we're going to take that, add a little dab of brown into your yellow if you don't have that already, and it'll create that yellow ochre. If you're not familiar with it, it is this color right here. And we are going to dab that all along here up until about the middle there. Don't worry if it picks up some of that blue and turns a little green, that's fine. This is going to be ground over here, so if it turns a little green, that will work out just fine. And we're going to do another little piece coming up like this. There. Now we're going to grab some brown, and we're going to dab right along the middle here. All the way across. And we're going to dab up on top. And a little bit down at the bottom here. All right, now we're going to jump to our trees, and we'll come back to some of the other parts here. We are going to start, let's go dark to light again. So we're going to do black, and we are going to mark where we want each of our trees. So we're going to put the trunk of the tree just like this. And we're going to have bigger ones on either side and then little ones coming across in the background here. And some bigger ones again on the other side. You can vary their heights quite a bit. And we're going to go over and do the reflection. So wherever you have a tree on top, put a tree on the bottom. Try to make them about the same size here. There we go. Now we're going to grab some more black. And we're going to do some back and forth motions like this, doing like a little scribble going up into this point. So now these are the ones that are like Christmas trees. They're shaped like a triangle. So just go ahead and do a little scribble like that. And it doesn't have to be perfectly shaped because we're going to have a lot more layers on this. Just little scribbles. And if you're struggling to do the scribbles, what you can do is you can do little lines like this all the way up until you get that motion down. And then all you have to do is just keep doing those little lines, but don't lift up your brush when you go back. So then it's little scribbles. You'd be amazed how much detail you can get out of scribbles. And then these little trees, I'm just going to kind of dab on because they're a little too small for the brush that I'm using. But as long as we put a little point at the top of them later, they will read as pine trees. And if you want, you can do all of your trees like this, where you just dab, because you will get a little more detail with your layers when you do that, but it will take longer. So it just depends on how you want your painting to look, and whether or not you're doing this just for fun, or if you want it to look as perfect as you can try to make it, or if you just like the look of one over the other. Go ahead and try both and see what you think. Do the same thing for the trees down at the bottom here. All right. Now I am going to take black and kind of fill in along here with little dots like this, because I don't want it to be just like a black line all the way across. I want this to be quite a bit darker. All right, now we're going to grab a dark green. And we're going to do the exact same thing over the top of our black. Just back and forth, back and forth. And some will be darker and some will be lighter. That is totally fine because not everything looks exactly the same in nature either, right? So now when we're dabbing, we're going to try and make sure that we're kind of coming up to a little point here for our trees. And if it's easier, you can start at that point and then do kind of a little triangle and fill it in. Now, if you're not getting dabs, if you're getting splotches, what's happening is you have too much water on your brush. So just go ahead and wipe off your brush and try again. Watercolor paint is pretty forgiving, so if it doesn't turn out exactly the way you want, just keep playing with it. So as I'm finishing these here, I'm going to end up using 3 different colors on my trees, 2 shades of green and the black. Now, the more layers of color that you add onto these pine trees, the more realistic they're going to look. So you can do 5, 6, 7 shades of green, however you want to do it. I'm only doing 3 just to show you because I want to make sure that there's highlights and shadows in there, and then a middle ground. So the shadows is what we have peeking through for the black here. And then I'm going to do a lighter green over it to show you how to highlight the peaks of the trees. But you are absolutely welcome to play with it and do some more different shades. The one thing I would definitely suggest is it helps if you try to remember where your light source is coming from. So when I start adding the highlights on here, I will demonstrate choosing a light source, because this one doesn't have a specific light source that you have to follow, where some of them, the sun's right here, so the light is coming from right there. But this one you can play around with a little bit more. Just gonna add a little bit of green into here. So now I'm going to make a light green. And I'm actually going to mix some of my yellow into my green instead of mixing white into my green, because I want it to be a bright light green. So by mixing the yellow into there, I'm making more of a lime green instead of a pastel green. So I'm going to take my light green, and I have decided that I want my light source to be from right here. So in my mind, the sun is up on this side here, coming across. So then the light from the sun would be hitting the trees coming from this side here. So we're going to make sure that we lighten that edge and then add a little bit of light to the very peak of the tree, so that very tippy top there. I do need this to be a little bit lighter, so I'm going to add a little bit of white in here too, just so that it's a pretty stark contrast, and you guys can definitely tell in the video. It's a lot easier for me to see the differences of colors right here than it is for you guys to see it in video. So and the one that, see, this one's tucked behind a really big tree, so maybe this one's casting a shadow, so the light source only comes down about halfway instead of all the way. Just like so. Now on the reflection, it's going to come from where that light source is in the reflection. So this side of the mountain here is this side of the mountain here. So you want to follow that same light source here. And then we're going to stick with the big trees for now, and then I'll show you a trick with the little ones. Now, if that light source is up here, maybe there's a little bit of light on both sides of these trees because it's right above. But then as you get further away from where that light source is, it'll start to only hit one side. All right, now on these little guys, the first thing I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you add light in the very, very top of the tree. So we're just going to do a little line like this from the top. You might need to go over it a couple of times if you don't have enough color on your brush. Do the same thing at the bottom here. Highlight that little peak. It also helps us make sure that we didn't lose the little peak in our tree as we were adding shades. And then we are going to just take our brush and we're going to do a couple of little marks like this along the sides. You can do 1, 2, or 3. I wouldn't do more than 3 on these little guys, and I would vary it up a little bit so that you get a little more difference in your nature here. Don't have quite enough paint on my brush. There we go. Just like that. Now we're going to go back to our land over here. We're going to grab that yellow ochre again. We're going to get a fair amount of color on there, but not a lot of water. So just add a little bit of water and then mix it up until it seems like you're kind of rubbing against a dry paint. And then we're just going to grab it and we're going to go like this. And what that's doing is it's leaving some little spackles of the paint here, but not super detailed. And we're going to do the same thing facing down over here. Then we're gonna, I'm not even gonna rinse off my brush. I'm gonna go straight to the brown and I'm gonna do the same thing over it like this. And this is another area where if you want to, you can add more shading. So I'm going straight from the brown into the black and I'm gonna grab the tiniest little bit of water because now my brush is a little too dry. So you can go into the black and do the same thing. Maybe go back to the brown and end up with a darker brown instead of just the black. And what we're doing is we're adding little bits of grass over here. So we can go ahead and go back to our lighter color. You usually want to end with that lightest color so that you have those highlights showing through really well. All right, now if you want, you can go into your white, which I need to clean off a little bit here. So bear with me a second. Which, in order to clean it off, just put some water on it and then wipe it right off. All right, now I'm going to go into my white. I'm going to mix it a lot because I want lots of white on there. I want it to be thick and goopy, kind of like when we did the snow caps here. And then I'm just going to add a couple of little clouds like this. Just dab them on. Maybe put some kind of peeking out from behind the trees. I'm going to do the same thing down here. For every cloud you put up top, you want to put one down below. In roughly the same shape, but it doesn't have to be exact. All right. Now, in this picture, we have the mountains and then we have the reflection in water. So in order to make it look like it's a reflection, we need to make it look like the water is moving and changing that reflection. So what we're going to do is we're going to dip our brush in the water and we're going to follow this horizon line, and we're just going to kind of go back and forth like this. And it'll grab some of the paint, it'll blur some spots. You don't want to have a ton of water or you'll blur it a little too much. Just very gently do that. Make sure you rinse between your trees and your mountain or you will have green lines on your mountain. And if you want to make sure that it comes across, what you can do is grab some more white here and add a few little white lines. And what that is it's the little ripples on the water catching that light source. So, and you don't want there to be a lot of them, but just do a couple. In the places that you want highlighted the most. Just like so. All right, so make sure you let us know how you did and show us some pictures. I really want to see them. And let me know if you have suggestions for other landscapes, things like that. We can definitely see what we can do about that. We're going to end up starting some more painting pretty soon here. We're going to end up having like a portrait class and floral painting, all sorts of stuff. So we'll see you again soon.